Hey friends, it's Just the Gems. I'm Brandon. I sit here before you today, a broken man. No, I'm okay. I'm fine. But as you may have observed from the title or the thumbnail or a combination of those two things, I have, for the first time since I started collecting, sold a substantial number of my games. And it was not an easy thing to do, and I wanted to talk about it. And I also wanted to talk to you about the process that I went through to sell those games. Just to give you a preview of what's to come. I sold them to PhoenixResale on YouTube. We did not interact in any way. I have interacted with him before, but not in this case. In this case, I used his app. If you're familiar with his channel, you might be aware that he recently developed an app for resellers called OneUp. And we'll go into more detail about how that works and my experience using it here in a little bit. But first, I wanted to kind of talk about my thinking and from the perspective of like a JRPG collector, what it means for me to kind of taking that first step to downsizing my collection a little bit, talk about why I did it in the first place, that sort of thing. So before we dive into that, can I ask if you are not currently subscribed and you've watched my videos even just from time to time, if you wouldn't mind subscribing, that would really help me out. We're so close to that 10,000, which I think I've said before is just like a mind-boggling, 1,000 is a mind-boggling number to me. But the 10,000, like what? So obviously it would just be really cool to hit that milestone, especially if we could do it before the end of the calendar year. I try not to set goals based around subscriber counts because that's not super within a person's control, right? But just throwing it out there, it would be really cool, really fun. We'll plan some sort of 10,000 subscriber Q&A, so start thinking of questions that you might want me to answer, as embarrassing as possible. Just let's take this opportunity to humiliate me. So keep that in mind. So anyway, yes, please subscribe if you're not. And if you wouldn't mind liking the video, if you got anything out of it, if you found it interesting, if you like the cut of my jib, this is my jib. Or is it just all of me? I don't know what a jib is. I think it's a ship thing. Is it part of a ship? Anyway, I don't want to get too off task here. Let's just get into why I downsized my collection. Okay, so the big question is, why did I decide to sell so much of my collection? And just to give you an idea of what I sold about, I think it was about 50 games, and they totaled about $1,200 in cash coming back my way. For the purposes of the Internal Revenue Service, this is a statement of opinion, is not a statement of facts, and it should not be used in any part of any audit at all whatsoever. This is purely speculative, fictional, and not real. But, you know, for everybody else, if you're not in the IRS, you follow me. Okay, so about $1,200, 50 games or so. And the reason that this happened, so I live in a county, in a state, in a country that has particularly high property taxes. You might be thinking, why are we talking about property taxes? Let's talk about video games. Well, I would love to talk about video games, but those property taxes kept getting in the way. Here's the thing, when you buy a house, you have escrow, you pay into the escrow, and they pay your taxes for you. This past month, I got a letter in the mail saying that my escrow account was $4,000+ short, $4,000 short. A crazy amount to be short. And I'm like, how is it this short? We've been paying the same amount that we've always paid. Well, it turns out our property taxes nearly doubled. I don't know why, I don't know how. This house that I live in is not worth twice what I paid for it. If anything, it's worth less. I've ruined it. I've done so many bad things to this place. I'm not a handyman. When things break, I can't fix them, and when I try to fix things, I break other things. So this house is worth less than I bought it for, certainly. But it is what it is. So this $4,000 bill was sitting there, and I was like, oof, that's not great. Don't love how that feels. So I started to feel a little, I don't know, kind of like I was cornered a little bit. I was like, I gotta do something. Like, and we're fine. Don't get the wrong idea. Like, we're okay. We have a savings. It's not, we're not destitute, but it's like, that's a big, that's a big hit to take as a middle class person. A $4,000 unexpected expense is kind of a heavy thing to absorb regardless. So I started looking for ways that I could bring in some extra money quickly, or ways that we could cut back spending. And the first thing I thought of was, well, I've got a mountain of video games, just so many video games. And, you know, if I just look at the shelves, I can't do it. You know what I mean? I look at the shelves and I see, you know, .hack GU Last Recode on PS4. I'm gonna play that someday, you know? I'm gonna play it someday. I am. And like Atelier Firis, The Alchemist of the Mysterious Journey. I'm gonna play that at some point. At some point, I'm gonna get around to it. So if I'm just sitting there and looking at games, like which ones could I part with? It's a no-go. Like I've sat down and done that a couple of times in the past when I kind of needed money, but I've never been able to pull the trigger on it because I'm like, no, like I like these games. I want to have these games. You know, I haven't played a lot of them, but like I don't want to give them up. So that was kind of the state of mind I was in previously. Well, this was a little bit different because it was like, hey, this is a big current expense, and the sooner I bring more money in, the sooner we can get that taken care of. So I sat down and seriously thought about it. And so a little background on the 1UP app that PhoenixResale put out. So previously, the PhoenixResale 1UP app, you could subscribe to this program. I think it's called like Quick Flips. And as a subscriber to this program, you would have access to this list of games that they would pay a pretty competitive resale price for if you wanted to sell them these particular games. And I was like, well, there are pretty good prices on there, but I don't want to pay. I don't remember how much it was, $100 a year. I don't remember. I might look it up and put it on the screen here if I can find it. But I didn't want to pay that much because I was like, I'm not going to be doing this regularly, right? Like I'm not going to be selling things to PhoenixResale or in general on a regular basis. So I don't really want to pay for a subscription. Well, shortly before my financial troubles, property tax, before my property tax troubles started, they eliminated that subscription fee. So it was free to submit batches of games to sell. So I was like, if I'm ever going to do this, this is the time to do it. Because why not? Like, this is the time to do it. So I sat down with the list, the list of quick flips. And these are like I alluded to, these are games that are a list of games that are put together by them. And it can change from month to month, but within a given month, you're guaranteed that price, barring condition issues, which I'll get to. And like I said, it's pretty competitive pricing for selling to a reseller. So I looked through the list and I was like, as I'm going through it, I'm like, oh, I actually have a lot of these games. And they're not games that I'm particularly attached to or attached to at all in some cases. And they're just games that I picked up when I started collecting. Because when I started collecting back in like 2018, 2017, I don't remember exactly when it was, 2018, I was like, I'm gonna collect video games because I watched a lot of video game collecting YouTube and they just kind of collected everything. So I was like, I'm gonna collect everything. So I started out getting all the games that I had as a kid, and then I moved into, you know, JRPGs, horror games, but also just the games that were the staples on each console. So all the Mario games and Zelda and all these different things that are great, but I'm not like emotionally connected to, and I don't necessarily want to have a library of now that I've kind of shifted my focus to JRPG collecting and horror, but I don't talk about that on this channel, but JRPGs in particular. So I had all these games that have just been sitting on the shelf for several years that I haven't played, will probably never play because they're just not, like, I have enough 80-hour epics here to last me probably a couple of lifetimes, so I don't need these other games. So I went through the list and was kind of, like I said, surprised to see how many of them I owned and how good the prices were. Now, could I have done better if I sold each of those games individually on eBay or something? Maybe. It's debatable though, because you have to consider eBay fees and shipping. Even if you have the buyer pay for shipping, there's still the, frankly, inconvenience of having to go and ship the item. I don't like dealing with the post office. No offense to postal workers, but it's just not the most fun experience to go to the post office, right? Like, you're with me on that. I think postal workers are probably like, yeah, I don't want to go to the post office on my day off either. So, I went through the process of going through this list, and I, determined that I had about 50 or so games that were cool, that I, for the most part, I don't think they're bad games. They're just games that I don't need in my collection because of what my collection has become. So just give you an idea of some of the games I sold. Battletoads on the Nintendo. I played Battletoads as a kid. I'm nostalgic for it, but I don't need it. Castlevania for N64. Not a super beloved game, am I right? Not super beloved. Donkey Kong on the Game Boy, Mario Kart DS. You know what I mean? Like games like Mario Party, games that I'm not gonna play. I'm never gonna play these games. Cruisin' USA? I'm not a racing game guy, not really. So, you know, why am I holding on to these games? Orange Box for Xbox 360. It's great games on there, but like I'm not gonna play them, and if I want to, there's numerous ways I can play them on my computer, I'm sure, which is probably where they're best experienced anyway. So I went through a bunch of my older systems, Nintendo, Super Nintendo, I think I sold a few Genesis maybe, games, and yeah, just like there were so many. And then I had also picked up a whole bunch of loose Pokemon carts for the various generations of Pokemon. And even though those do kind of fit into the genre, it's like I'm not playing Pokemon games right now. It's never really been my thing. Maybe someday I'll get into Pokemon, but when I'm, you know, in the situation where I need money now, holding on to the Pokemon games that I picked up at garage sales over the years is less of a priority than hoarding those for, you know, who knows how long before I get to them. So I put together this batch of games and put it into the app. It's really convenient. Like you just use the app and scan the barcode, it pulls up the game, and you know, you can indicate the condition. For like the older consoles, they don't even give you an option, it's just loose. Like they assume it's gonna be loose, and that's fine. And then for like PlayStation and above, like you can indicate if it's complete, if it's missing the manual, and they have the prices clearly laid out in the app for what each of those conditions is going to be worth. And then there's some caveats in there, like if discs need to be resurfaced, it's something like, it's like $6 for every 6 discs that need to be resurfaced. And then if a game is missing a case that they need to get a case for because of the way they sell, they don't sell loose like disc games, I believe. So they'll have to get a case for it, and so they charge $1 for a case that's missing. So I picked out all of these games. I found a big old box, big old sturdy box, and I shoved them all in there with a whole bunch of bubble wrap and stuff to like keep it steady, keep it solid. I'm always so nervous. I bought the insurance when I pulled up USPS and bought the shipping, and I paid for the insurance for it. It was like, I don't know, $25 or something, but I was like, this is too much. Like I need this to come through for me, you know? I've had things go horribly wrong in the Postal Service before. My Trails into Reverie box arrived like this. I didn't destroy it in a fit of rage. I quite enjoyed Trails into Reverie. But yeah, so I mean, things happen, and I was not gonna take any chances. I bought the insurance. Anyway, so I shipped it off, and within a few days, I got a message back from PhoenixResale's company or whatever. I mean, it's him and a few people. It's a company, but it's a small operation, saying, hey, you know, this looks great. There was a few discs that need to be resurfaced, so it was like $6 and then a couple of cases or something. So ended up being like $8 less than the estimate, but it was still like $1,200 something. So I was like, that's fine. Do what you got to do, man. And what they do, the way they handle payment is, I think they used to do PayPal or something, but there's fees associated with that. They don't do that now. Now they just do an online check, which is something I've never seen before. And I was a little nervous about it at first because I was like, you just print this? Like that seems, I don't know, that seems iffy. But you literally just print this, you get a login to this thing, to your it's not really an account, but like your payment through this service, and you download the check, you print it out, and then it's just like you cut it out and then you sign it and deposit it, and it goes through like a normal check, and it's fine. And the money was in my account, and I was like, okay, we did it. So consider that my review of the quick flips on 1UP, if you wish. Like, I think it's great. Like, if you have a bunch of these games that you're not like super keen on keeping, I think there's a certain minimum that you have to meet. I'll put it here on the screen what the minimum selling amount is that you need to put a box together, but it's not unreasonable. If you have several games, you'll probably hit it. But you can put together a box and send it, and it's super quick and super easy, and I think they were very fair. And yeah, I would definitely do it again if I needed to. I don't know how likely it is I'm going to be able to do it again, because I'm pretty sure with that batch of games, I sold pretty much all of the ones that are likely to appear on a list like this, the quick flips list, right? The super common not necessarily common games, but games that are commonly sold, that they sell the most, that they know that they can turn over quickly. That's kind of how that works. So it's unlikely that I'll be able to sell a big batch like that again. But I will say that if you have a lot of those games on that list, check out the list. You want to make some money very easily without having to go through the hassle of selling it on eBay or taking it to a game store and probably getting significantly less. It feels like I probably would have gotten significantly less if I took it to a game store. Highly recommend it for sure. The question then is, would I ever sell again, period? Like, barring any kind of emergency, right? And, fingers crossed, knock on wood, I'm not in a situation where I have to sell a bunch of games because we're in deep trouble otherwise, hopefully that doesn't happen. If that was the case, yes, I will part with my video games if it's like a serious situation. I'm not sick, but yeah, I would, but like, would I sell more? Because I've heard that once you start as a collector, once you start selling, it kind of like the dam is just opened and all of a sudden you just are like, oh, this actually feels really good to like kind of offload these games and free up space and get money and all this stuff. And I will admit that there is a little bit of that. I do feel a bit of the like satisfaction of like, oh, I got money now. I had to spend it immediately on, taxes, but whatever. But it does feel good. It's like, oh man. And there's something like kind of freeing about it, because I decided several years ago that I was shifting the course of my collecting to focus on just JRPGs and horror, which I don't talk about on this channel. But, I still had these games from when I was just kind of going hog wild and going to garage sales every week and buying games and, flea markets and stuff, like going nuts. And they were just going to sit there forever. And it's like, well, hey, I took this, junk on a shelf that was just going to sit there forever, and I got $1,200 out of it. So, it's not necessarily life-changing money, but it's very helpful right now. And so I don't know, like, part of me is like, yeah, I should probably go through and continue to sort of pare down the collection a little bit, particularly games that I know that I don't like, because I do have games, JRPGs in particular, in the collection that I know I don't care for. Like, I just have them because they're JRPGs. And, from the perspective of wanting to create a library, well, a library doesn't just have books that I like in it, right? It has all the books. So there's an argument that I could make when I argue with myself, when I'm alone and just talking to myself like a crazy person, that, I could say, well, it's a library, so I need to have all these different types of games that fit the bill, even if they're not games that I particularly like. But do I really, though? Do I really need to do that? Or is that just a lie that I tell myself to justify the hoarding? I don't know. So yeah, I probably will sell off some more games. I don't know whether I would do it in a big lot like this, maybe a more piecemeal. I've sold games piecemeal before on eBay or at game stores, like particularly if it was a game I didn't care. I'd sold Astria Ascending, for example, because I did not care for that. Reviews on this channel, did not care for that game, so I was like, I don't need to keep this. I wasn't nostalgic for it, so like, why am I, Anyway, so I don't know. Yeah, I think in the future, I may sell some more games as I play more of my collection and determine which games are just not doing it for me. Maybe I don't hold on to them just because of the genre they fit into. Maybe I pass them on to somebody who might actually enjoy them instead of just sitting on them forever, so that that copy of that game never gets played by anybody ever again. I don't know. We'll see. But anyway, let me know what you think about all this. Like, have you sold games through the 1UP app? Have you sold games to a reseller before? Have you, like, what has your experience been like downsizing your collection? I'm curious to hear how other people have handled it. Not only just out of pure curiosity, but because, like, if I want to do this again, I'd be curious what other avenues there might be that I haven't explored yet. And like I said, because of the way quick flips on the 1UP app, quick flips on the 1UP app, the way that works is it's unlikely that I'll have a huge lot of games to sell to them again. So I'm curious, to hear about some other ways that we might go about it. So let me know all that stuff down in the comments. Let me know if your property taxes went up. If you live in the county I live in, you can probably figure it out. There's clues throughout the channel that suggest around about where I live. You can probably figure it out. But anyway, once again, if you wouldn't mind subscribing, if you like hanging out, chatting. I don't know if you're chatting with me. Maybe you are. I can't hear you if you are. But, if you like watching these videos and hearing me talk at you about stuff, first of all, thank you. That's the nicest thing anyone's ever said to me. And second of all, please, consider subscribing if you're not. Please like the video, don't forget that I have a podcast. I have a podcast called the JRPG Pursuit, and every week we are putting out new episodes where we're talking about various things related to the JRPG community, games that we like, genres, subgenres that we want to explore, just broader topics about JRPGs in general. So come check us out. We're on YouTube every week. We're also on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get podcasts, but you can subscribe on YouTube. The link for that is down in the description. Thank you so much for watching once again, and until next time,